like I was basically reading through all these clips of the shoplifting fiasco that happened in 2023, where there's so many people reporting on shoplifting is out of control. Target stores are closing down. It's America is burning to the ground. And then when the information came out about this, and all these major retailers and retail chains said that 95% of the losses that they had, close to like somewhere around $94 billion worth of losses, came from shoplifting. It turns out they lied. The actual answer was 5%. Only 5% of it was from shoplifting. A lot of it had to do with shrink and stuff. And the Target stores and all these other stores that were closing down, they were closing down for a completely different reason. There was more shoplifting that was happening to the other locations all surrounding them in every major city that like studies started looking at. I was like, there's so much evidence on this topic that this was all a big thing, where all of these media figures, including TYT, by the way, were doing these sensationalist stories that shows a lot of footage of, yes, no one's ever on the other side of like a violent criminal, or if someone goes into a store and beats someone up and then smashed a bunch of stuff, like obviously you're not supposed to defend that. But the fact that that's what we got like all the sensationalization and the media focus, when this wasn't a problem the way it was being talked about. And it was actually, no one was talking about like corporate greed. No one was talking about shrink and all these other factors. I was like, this actually tells a whole story, and it plays into that whole like keep people afraid about this kind of theft, when what is the majority of theft in America? I'm sure you all know the answer. Wage theft. But it's to such a disgusting, disproportionate degree, of which is like, it's not even like apples and oranges. It's like a complete drop in the ocean. Like we're talking billions and billions and billions of dollars in wage theft, and there's no governing body outside of maybe 1,000 like manned personnel in this one organization that looks after that. Meanwhile, police budgets are just continuously going like this. Like if you talk about New York, it's like what, $11 billion is like the New York police department budget. So police are getting all this money to try and fight a problem that isn't actually going after the problem. And the only reason everyone buys into it is because of like propaganda, our movies, the idea that society's safer if police keep us safe, and media always showing us this is scary, this is frightening. Look at people breaking in, look at this, and they're disproportionately black, and they're disproportionately indigenous, and they're smashing the glass, and it's all super scary. Are you on the side of the people breaking glass? And like you have to play defense, where you're like, no, obviously I don't defend the guy, the mad pooper of Florida. It's bad that he's pooping on people. Obviously, I'm not on his side, but I just think the solution to this is probably not giving the police, millions and millions of more weaponized, materials.
Yeah, it's class warfare. It's class warfare because when you think about wage theft, it's like, okay, if your employer steals from you, what would happen if you were to just, like, let's say you work retail, you just go in the cash register, you take that $200 that they didn't pay you in overtime, you would go to jail, even though they stole from you. Like, these are things that are only enforced on the poor, right? If you are a poor person and you steal, that's theft. You go to jail. If you're a corporation and you steal from your employees, I mean, it's theft technically, but what are you going to do, right? It's that power dynamic. You have no power. They have all the power. And it's frustrating to see people play into this narrative, because a lot of people who fall for these types of fear-mongering over crime and whatnot, which crime has always existed and always will exist. We don't live in a utopia, but they're kind of like playing into their own like disenfranchisement in a way, because like this is all class warfare. It's against you too, dummy. It's really frustrating. I don't know.
It is frustrating. It pisses me off, and I love that you covered that, because what they try to do is make it under the guise of there's theft, there's this, there's that, but you see how you compared it to all these other issues, and how it is like apples to oranges when we look at the breakdown of it. Those are the type of conversations that should be had, but what they try to do is base it on, okay, it's theft, and it's a certain type of people who are doing these things, and this is where the crime is, and it's the thugs, and it's this and it's that, and it's really not all that. If we break it down to what it actually is, and what they're doing and why they're doing it, and environmental issues, there's so much other things that goes into it, but that's not how they're reported. That's not how they'll talk about it. This whole thing could be very, like, when we break it down, it is frustrating. And if we go back to the gist of it about defunding the police, these are the reasons why we talk about it, because you guys fund for these kind of things. I don't like going to a Walmart where you're locking up deodorant.
Right.
That's not making sense. And I don't like going to these communities as well, where there's what I call a black tax. Why is it so much more in this black poor community than it is over here where I live, where everything ain't locked up, it's free, there's like, it's 10 cents less, $1 less. It's like, I don't understand it. And there's more police presence at the black Walmart or at the black Target or at the whatever. It's ridiculous. So
and it pisses me off too that it's also sold in a very Orwellian way, where it's like, listen, I get it, it's these corporations and they're rich, but you should also care when they're stolen from because that affects you somehow. The way it affects you is, well, if they steal, then they're going to raise the prices and whatnot. So care about that more than the wage theft. Care about that more than the corporations that are robbing us blind just in general. It is psychological class warfare in a way. And I feel like we all have a duty to not participate in it, especially if we identify as liberals. I don't, but if you're a liberal, you probably shouldn't participate in that. So if you're a media outlet that's doing this, you should probably stop or maybe focus on like wage thefts.
Yeah. I'm curious how much of the media that, you know, focus so much on all those thefts at these stores,
the
then came back and apologized and correct the record. Did they? Yeah, the shoplifting stuff. Did they come back and correct the record and, you know, apologize and that they got it wrong and here's the real story? Did any of these places do that? I would be surprised.
I mean, Walgreens, I think
like New York Times may have. That's why it came out, but no one else did.
Target I think had something about something because it was the same kind of argument that they were having with the Target.
Targets is really bad because when you look at the study that actually like looked at all the theft that was happening at Targets, it would be like the location that was chosen to close down was being done in predominantly black neighborhoods, but not where there was more shoplifting, but where there was less purchasing power. So it's also one of those things where it's like, there's a lot of reasons why people in a certain area might not be able to start shopping at Target or Walgreens or something like that. There's reasons for that. But to say that this is because of theft is really fucked up. And to say like, oh, we're just doing this because of theft. It's because the shoplifting is out of control. Meanwhile, in a much more expensive neighborhood, shoplifting was way higher. We're talking in one instance, I think in the Folsom Street in San Francisco, it was like 28 to 321 incidents, 28 in the one that closed down, 321 in the one that remained open. So that's not, you're lying. You're lying to everybody about the reason for this.